Guys, Jasmine here for your daily shading feedback, and I'm so excited to see all the submissions. Let's get started. First, we're going to start with Adrian's Kyle, this boy here, and I think he's looking great. I really love the updates, especially the eye is a huge difference, and I see that you said you added some simple eye procedurals, and I think it's great. I think it's looking awesome. You're getting that detail in there, it's getting that nice kind of shaping, and it's like night and day from the last one, which I think is great. So great job on that. And then you also tweak the scale of the bandage, which I also think is working nicely. It is that kind of balance between realistic scale, right, and to view it from far away, and I think it definitely hits that. Before it kind of looked like a mistake to me. I think I mentioned that it just looked like, oh, did he forget to add a shader to that part? But now, as I look at it, it's definitely feeling more like a bandage. And also, this is like the type of thing where, we kind of spoke about with the framing. It depends how close he is going to be or how far away he's going to be when you're thinking about textures and how much detail or the how much non-details you're going to need. So that's something to definitely keep in mind with. Like if we were getting super close up here on this, then one, we would want to look at it really close up to get the texture, but you might then need some more detail in that, or opposed to, like, let's say if you're seeing it just from this distance or even further, let's say, one thing I like to do is, like, you can like zoom out to see how that's reading from far away. So that's another thing to do. One other thing, let me see. I did notice that I'm seeing kind of that. Is it funny? I was thinking, like, is that intentional? When you get those kind of homemade screened t-shirts where you see where the iron area is. If that's intentional, then it's totally cool. Like, this kid just made his own t-shirt. If it's not intentional, then I would watch out, because we are seeing that line there. And when he's moving, you're going to notice that. And one part of it might be because there's a sheen to it. I don't know if that's intentional too, but if you get rid of that kind of like specular sheen in that area, that could help it out. One thing that is interesting, I guess it might be the refraction going on in the lens, but it's a little, I don't know. Like if I look at the eyes, it's just make sure it's correct. Because it's making the eyes a little bulged out, which is it's a cool effect, but make sure that's correct. And then we're gonna want to maybe do a separate pass. Think about that for the glasses to kind of get that reflection in there, but you want to control it. So that's something to think about moving forward. Another thing that I would say is I'm liking the hair, but I feel like it's missing that kind of sheen that hair gets. And if I look at your reference here, and I'm looking at, let's find the hair. Yeah, so for example, look at that hair. Look at that this nice sheen right here that you're getting on your reference. It's not as much here and on this guy. So it depends on where you're going, but I think adding a little bit of that sheen into yours right here, more of like a tighter sheen, would work really well. Or looking at this reference too, he's got almost like some variation and highlights in the hair too. Like even this has bits of black here, more of like a reddish brown highlights here. So you could play with that too for variation. Trying to look, everything else is looking pretty good. I will say that the pants is looking a little bit hard, like not as soft as maybe a fabric would. It's almost looking a little cardboardy, and I'm looking at it. This is where when you're texturing something, you kind of have to look at it like, what is it that's making that? And that's where the reference really comes into play. And I'm looking at the fabric that you have for the pants here. Let's go back to your pants. So I'm not feeling this might be where you're saying like, oh, the texture's too fine, and I'm seeing that texture in there. You know what I might be reading is kind of it's almost like a cardboardy dirt pattern going on with the color map on this that's throwing me off. It's like it reminds me of cardboard. I keep saying cardboard because it reminds me of cardboard. So that maybe that's what it is that's throwing me off. This is what I find so interesting about texturing. Like I'm looking at it, I'm like, it's not as quite as soft as I'd want. So I think it feels almost like too procedural in a way. If you look at fabric, I'm not feeling the texture there that I'm seeing in your reference, like this. And so you might play with that scale too. And also, I feel like the color map might be varying up a little too much. Like, what is that? Is that corduroy? I get some more reference on that too. And it also depends on how far, like I said, are you seeing the pants or you're not, that kind of thing. Also, as I'm on this, the eyeglasses, it would be great to get that highlight speck, like that, in your eyeglasses, like here. Get that kind of hit to add that extra dimension to him. But overall, I think he's looking great. He's really cute. I'd also watch out for this nose here. He's getting pretty red. So the subsurface, I'm not sure if you're doing a separate map for that, but look here, and also the ears. It's pretty prominent, the subsurface that's coming out. So I might scale back on that quite a bit, especially in the nose area. But yeah, overall, I think he's looking great. I think just even filling him up a little bit for the shading really helps to diagnose the textures and the shaders. So let's move on to your mauve guy here. Did I say that right? Is it mauve? I apologize if I said that wrong. Let's see, what did you do? You said you shifted and added wear on the scarf design. So you're talking about the skull here, right? It's feeling like stretched, like in a narrow way, kind of like it's too forced there. I feel like it should be wider. And also, I'd love to see, I'm looking at, I wonder, it's just feeling so rigid. I want to see let me see. Because, okay, when I say rigid, this may not be a texturing thing, but almost like a modeling thing. But you see how even in your reference here, like the fabric has natural folds to it, and that's what makes it feel like it's there. It's like a natural thing. Where this in the model is so rigid. Like if I put on a bandana, I'd probably have like a little bit of folds, going in. It wouldn't be like straight across like this. So I think that's what I'm reading. It'd be great if maybe you can adjust the model. I know you're probably not doing cloth simulation. I mean, if you're doing cloth simulation, that's awesome too. But something you could do if you're not doing cloth simulation is like maybe kind of add that variation in the model. And that's where it's interesting a little bit when you're looking at like modeling and lighting go so hand in hand. If you're given a model with no shaping, it's really hard to get the lighting right? So it's all kind of dependent and relates to one another. So that's the thing I would really try there. And then once you do that, I would like look at your reference. There is texture there is softness, and I'm looking at this, and the highlight could be even broader, I think, as well. And also adding that texture in there, because I'm not seeing the texture in there at all. I'm seeing, and then the other thing I'll say is, you mentioned, okay, so I'm not really seeing the wear and tear. I guess I am seeing some wear and tear here. You're talking about here, right? I get it. I see it. I think one thing I will say is when I'm looking at the reference here, like the wear and tear that I'm seeing on that you added, which I think is great, I almost think it's missing that like differentiation and saturation almost of a fold. Like when you get in the folds here, like if you look at the reference, it's not necessarily dirty, it's just like darker and more and like a deeper shade of that color, and I'm not getting that here. It kind of stays this. I guess it does get a little bit darker, but like I don't know, a wear and tear, like instead of coming out like that with the gray, I almost want it to be like a deeper red in there. But I see it. I definitely do see it. I think maybe adding some variation like within the creases with more of like a deeper red would really help kind of give it that dimensionality. And then also like the eyes, like what you did to your other guy, Kyle. I think it'd be cool to add a little bit more dimension, like some more interest in the eye that you did on your other one. Okay, and this is the guy that you don't even see like his shoes or anything, right? So I'm not even gonna hit on that right now. But overall, I think he's looking good. I feel like, yeah, the one thing is I feel like in all the kind of cracks of the red on him, it'd be really nice to get a variation of like a deeper saturated red going on in there, so it doesn't feel so flat, so there's more variation in the color. What do you think of that? Maybe try it and let me know what you think. Okay, let's move on to Ashley. I think this is looking great, and let's talk about these ears. I know this is a tricky thing, right? So you mentioned that you softened the inside of the material, which is right here, and it's definitely feeling softer, which is great, not as sharp. And you redid the fur texture by creating a tile. Okay, so it doesn't look stretched out, and the fur bump in height and softening it. So okay, this is what's so tricky about this fur. It's tricky to make something look like fur that's not fur, and that's like a solid piece of geo. And there's a couple ways around this. So like what I'm talking about is essentially, if you look at your reference here, zoom in, and just look at the outline, right? It's not straight. You get like, it's hard to tell because it's lower res, but you can see there's like variation here, and it's not like a straight line. And then you can see closely in the texture, right? So what's hard about this situation is that when it's something really furry, like you can get away with it more like a felt type of material, but when you're going for like something really furry, like organically, it'd be like something like that would be the alpha that you'd want to see, I'm just drawing with a don't take my exact, but you get my feeling. It wouldn't be this straight line that we're seeing here, right? It would be kind of this organic thing. So the question is, how do you get that? How do you get that feel in a piece of geometry that is straight without actually putting in fur? And it's kind of like you need to go in stages, where this is where it can get a little tricky, but it's definitely doable, where I always think of like go to broad I didn't mean to write in here, but broad to fine details, right? So like a broad map, texture map could be, and this would be a displacement map, would be like very soft, but like a big map that gives you this variation on the outside, and it's like really subtle, right? So you have like and it would look really soft, like a soft map. It's not anything harsh, because if you look at the reference, this is all soft lines. There's no sharp angles here. It's very fluffy. So you're looking at something that's like kind of very blurred, a black and white matte map that would kind of give you this variation here on the edging, and hopefully won't be too detailed and won't be too expensive to render. And then that's when you go and maybe like a finer map, and that could just be a bump, right, to give you that variation kind of like in the main bits here. And that's what's really gonna get you that feeling. So then you'll have like this type of thing. And another thing to think about is like how close are you gonna be to your ears? Because if you're not gonna be that close, then you can definitely trick it in different ways, But if you're gonna be like super close, well, one, if you're gonna be like really close up, like as close up as I am now, I'd say like maybe we should invest in some fur generation. But if you're going to be like a little bit further away, then you can definitely get away with something like this. So what we're looking at is like a bump, like a broad kind of black and white gray tone displacement map, and then a finer bump map on top of it. But you definitely want it to be soft, because like even here, this isn't translating to fur in the same way. Actually, it could be, but it's the scale of the color map is throwing me off, because look at that scale of your color map here, and then look at your reference. Like you wouldn't see all of the, like this is too large of a scale. You'd want to scale it down too. So that's the first thing as well. Same thing here. So let's try that. I know it might be a little bit like you're like, what did you just say? But let me know if this makes sense. So just think about it in stages, like broad strokes. This is like the broad strokes, where you want just a really general, like subtle displacement map to kind of create this variation. And then you do a finer one, plus the color map scale. And then alternatively, you can also play with more of like a softer felt material that you can definitely get away with not having like a displacement and whatnot. And that's more about like facing ratio type of things. So, okay, play with me, play with that. Tell me what you're thinking, and let me know if questions come up. Okay, let's go on to Ubed. And this is scary. It's like Halloween all over again. The first thing I will say when I saw this is you don't want to be, because this is like, I know you said it's a texture thing, but you're kind of mixing lighting and texturing, because the lighting here is very, like it's lit, is what I'm saying. It's not just a flat, like a default lighting setup, kind of like what we're seeing here, or here, or like here, and that's good, but it also makes it hard to evaluate a lot of the shading and texturing in a way that might translate to other scenes. But if this is, let's say this is the scene that you're lighting, and this is the only scene, and this is the shaders, then I totally get it, and you can totally do that. The one thing I will say though is the big no-no, and this is lighting: never light over black. I have a coworker that just screams at people for doing that. But unless this character is going to be over black in the final thing, never light over black, because it's going to skew you. And by default, like if it's just a shading test, like doing 50% gray is a good place to be if you're just doing like the shading and a lighting like turntable test. But the best thing is to light over the backplate that you're going to be eventually comping over is the best thing. The second best thing is I guess the second best thing is 50% gray, but even that, if it's an actual shot, you should really be going for the backplate, but never black. I hear my coworker screaming at me, or you right now. Okay, so let's go to the textures. I think it's looking really cool. I'm liking the subsurface going on here. It's a little strong, but I get it. It's like this alien creature, and he's stylized. One thing I will say is this specular here is throwing me off. Like, why? Like, what is this material here? I'm assuming it's like dirt. And if it's dirt, then it wouldn't be that specular. It would actually be a lot more diffused. So that I would adjust. Like, it would be cool to see if that material has a different specular value than his skin, let's say. Which it seems like it does, but I guess I'm confused of what that material is and why is it so hot there. So that was definitely throwing my eye off. And also, like, I know this isn't a lighting thing, but if this was the lit frame, my eye is going straight right here to that. Like, this part's just getting lost. So depending on where you want the viewer's eye to go, then that's something to think about when you're lighting this thing. The eye is looking cool, but I feel like, there's so much detail everywhere else. I'd love to see that detail in the eye. And what that would just mean is just like, darker outer rim, like a darker outer rim. The inner is darker, and just like a nice, like a grad. You can do a procedural, which would add the element. You like my eye even more, but you get my drift. Like, there's so much detail everywhere else. Let's give some love to the eye, because the eye is like one of the most key things around. Also, the same holds true for like these guys here. It's so funny. I really like the feel of them, but also it's like everything's so grungy and worn, but also like these are like so nice and perfect that they stand out to me. Like, these should be on like a princess somewhere, like a Pocahontas, instead of like this monster creature. So to align with what's going on, I would grunge this thing up and not make it feel so pretty. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on in here. Let me think. Like, the teeth are looking cool. I almost want the teeth to be whiter, but because they're kind of, they're fading in a little too much to everything else. I'd love to have them pop a little bit more. And also, I mean, that goes with the eyes too, the sclera. Like, that goes with my eye thing. I want it to pop more. I want it to stand out. And let's look. I mean, the materials themselves are looking really good. I love this, like, the tooth material here. That's getting a really nice effect. Yeah, and my biggest thing is, like, what I said, especially this material, this brown material. Let's figure out what exactly that is and make it feel that way. Like, is it dirt, or is it, like, more like a birthmark kind of thing where it's just, like, on his skin? I don't know. I'm curious. Let me know about it. But I think this is looking great. And with a few more things, we can even make it look better. So, awesome job. Let's move on. Here we are. And I love seeing the variation. This is from me, like the fully animated sequence that we have, for those that aren't familiar with it. And I have these, like, special love for these little simple houses. And I love this variation. I feel like I'm in, like, a Candyland type of scenario. And I know my daughter would just love this thing. So I think the style frame is great. Yes, definitely add the white frame here. I'll tie it together. If you're adding the white frame here, I wonder if this shouldn't be white as well. Similar to your reference here, right? So I would think about that. If this is white frame, then I'm thinking this outline should also be a white frame. But, I mean, play with it. And I love, like I said, I'm loving these trees. I think it's really cute. It's like a little confetti thing. Oh my god, I have to show my daughter this. She's gonna love it. And I really like, this reference here. for her. The one thing I will say when I saw this is that these ears right here, the saturation and the brightness on the outer part of it was like really jarring to me. Like my eyes just went to it immediately, and like everything else kind of fell. Like I didn't notice it, and I think it's just the saturation level on it is just so vastly different from every other place in here. And if you look at your reference, actually, it's not as saturated and intense as in yours. So I would dial that back. I would bring it more towards like this realm, kind of like in between this and this, to kind of to so it's not distracting to the viewer, because you don't want something to be so distracting. But those are the things that I'd say. I love this whole thing going on. I can't wait to see it in action. I know that my daughter's already gonna be your biggest fan here with the confetti. You got her at confetti trees and like cotton cotton candy. Yeah, cotton candy puffs of. I mean, I want to be part of this shot. Okay, with that, I can't wait to see what you come up with, and can't wait to see it animated. So, if there's anything else, let me know. I know I kind of went a little long. I can't believe it's so long. I apologize. I guess I'm in a rambling type of mood tonight. Okay, let me know if you have any questions. Can't wait to see your updates. Talk to you soon. Bye.